Yo, 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 yo. Welcome to Eyes and Ears. Welcome to the Eyes and Ears show. Hello. How have you been? Take your shoes off. Take your coat off. Come on in. Come on. Relax. Relax. I'm Charles, your host, your conductor, whatever you want to call it. This is the Eyes and Ears show podcast. What we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to be kicking off not a series per se, but just talking about the law. Okay, a lot of people seem to be interested in law. A lot of people seem to be on fire about certain topics. Okay, a lot of people are awake to the reality that we have certain rights that are different than certain privileges. Okay, a lot of people are aware that we have the right to be free. Okay, unrestricted from the government. Okay, we have a right to live, to raise our families, to do what we choose to do, as long as we don't hurt others or their property. Okay, we're free beings. Okay, so how do free beings like us end up getting entrapped in a legal scheme? How do people and their family members, their homes, their property, their ability to choose where they work? Okay, how did all those aspects get entangled in a governmental scheme? Okay, in this police power. We're going to be talking about these things, but I think it's very, very, very important, especially in the times that we're in, to understand like who we are, to know thyself, to know what it is that makes us special, to know what makes us unique, to know why we're so like why are we so damn cool? Why can people do so much, yet we're being restricted every day? You look at the sky, you see chemtrails, you see stratospheric aerosol injections, okay, filled with aluminum and barium and all these garbage toxins. Okay, you see McDonald's, you see poisonous food all over the place. You turn on the TV, you see like perversions, you see garbage. Why is this stuff around us? I don't think it's coincidental. I think all these things are here to keep us back spiritually, mentally, physically, you name it. These things are here to literally curb who we are and bring us back. And one of those aspects, in my opinion, is the law. Our knowledge of the law, our lack of knowledge of the law, is the reason why a lot of us do the things we do without knowledge, because we perceive something to be a certain way, but we don't know the letter of the law. Okay. When you see something for what it is, you can understand it better. You can approach it better. You can make better decisions, right? So, my story began right about the time I was in the Air Force. I left in 21, right as COVID hit 2020, right? 2019, late 19, 2020. So for the whole of 2020 and then part of 2021, I was in the Air Force. I was around the Capitol when all this was going on. So it's great perspective to see. And there were so many unlawful things happening at the time, like going to the store, having to put a mask on. Okay, you couldn't do certain things without somebody else's permission. You couldn't go here without a mask. You couldn't do that without a mask. You had to show this. You had to show this. Are you vaccinated? All this stuff. All these things bothered me to a point of like, why am I being told to put on a mask? Isn't a mask a medical device? Isn't the news saying that this stuff isn't helping? These masks don't help anything, but I'm being forced to wear this to the point of my rights being violated. Why is that? That's what planted my seed. That's what got me on this journey of going deeper. I was always aware of this stuff. I always had an inkling of, something being right. I always had a conspiratorial mind, but going through it firsthand, being arrested for not wearing a mask, being arrested for not talking to police, okay, being threatened by child protective services for not complying with certain things, all that woke me up. At least it woke me up to the fact that we live in some kind of weird fabric where our rights are secondary to our privileges, which shouldn't be the case. So I chose to take a deep dive into American jurisprudence, okay, into the law. So that's what got me into my journey. And that's what this series is about. Know thyself. This is number one, titled Rights, Constitution, Police Power. Okay. We need to understand our rights. We need to understand the Constitution, and we need to understand what is police power and how does it act. Okay. And where am I in all of this? Okay. Where do we stand in the scheme? Okay. Neo in the Matrix, when he went to the Oracle and she told him he had to know thyself. Okay. Neo was not the one until after he truly knew who he was. When he started accepting who he was, he started becoming the one. When you understand where you fit in this legal scheme, when you understand what your rights are in comparison to public things, your private rights and public privileges, okay? That's the stuff that wakes you up. That's the stuff that opens your eyes to the fact of everything's a code. Everything is green. There's numbers all over the place. And I'm by no ways a legal expert. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. I'm none of those things. I just use my eyes and my ears to do what I do. Okay. So let's do what we do. Let's start out with the Constitution. So this is American jurisprudence. American jurisprudence encompasses the laws of our nation. It encompasses case law. It encompasses different procedures. You name it, Amjur talks about it. Zoning laws, it's got it. Animal rights, animal laws, it's got it. Parent-child relationships, it's got it. Weapons, guns, firearms, you name it, it is most likely talked about in Amjur. Anything, okay? Anything, it's most likely there. With case law to back it up, which is important. So, knowing thyself. Number one, who am I? Who are we? Okay? Who are we? Are we entities of the government? Are we persons? What are we? Who am I? All I know is I'm a child of God. I'm a man. I was created by something greater than myself. Okay? I am a creation of a maker who gave me rights upon my birth. I have certain rights. And even before, I mean, your rights are there. Your rights are there. Okay? Your rights don't come from a piece of paper on your birthday. You have them with you. Okay? So, number one, you are not the government. You are not a creation of the government. Your family is not a creation of the government. Your home is not a creation of the government, unless it is. Okay? You are not associated with the government just because, by virtue of existing. Okay? Number one, you belong to yourself. You belong to God. You belong to your family. You are yours. You're not the government's. Okay? Your rights are not given to you by the government. The Constitution does not give you your rights. It secures them. But the Constitution is written for a specific group of people, for specific corporations, for specific entities, for specific nations. The Constitution is not for everybody just because. It secures your rights, but it does not give you your rights, okay? That's very, very imperative to understand. And this is where we're going to get into constitutional law. We're going to get into fundamental rights. We're going to just break right into that. I wanted to start with the Constitution, go into police power, and then fundamental rights. But no. We're going to start right at the core because this is what matters. We got to start with us, okay? So number one, so this is Amjur 16A, Amjur, which is constitutional law, okay? This is talking about fundamental rights and privileges, section 439. This is what I'm reading. A constitutional right is a right guaranteed to the citizens by the Constitution and so guaranteed as to prevent legislative interference with the right. Okay, so let's break that down. A constitutional right, okay? A right that is guaranteed. A constitutional right is a right guaranteed to the citizens by the Constitution. It doesn't give them the right. It doesn't give the citizens the rights. It secures rights. It guarantees rights that are already there. Again, God-given rights. And it guarantees as to prevent legislative interference with that right. Okay? The government, the legislature cannot interfere with your constitutionally secured rights. They can't arbitrarily come to your house, come on your property and say, hey, I'm just here to do whatever I'm here to do. They can't do that. The government can't take your kids away from you arbitrarily. There has to be certain things checked off if you are part of that scheme. The government can't, just because your car doesn't have plates, say, I'm going to seize that vehicle. There's certain rules and procedures to that. Okay? You have a right to travel. You have a right to be. You have a right to move. You have a right to own property. You have a right to enjoy that property. You have a right to dispose of that property lawfully. As long as you're not damaging somebody else or their property, you can do whatever the hell you want, as long as you're within that frame of not damaging anybody. Okay? What does Jesus say? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, all your strength, everything. You love God, number one. And number two, you love your neighbor more than yourself. You love your neighbor. The love you have for yourself, you give that more to somebody else. Okay? You know how you have your property, you don't want it damaged? Don't damage somebody else's property. That's it. That's it. Those are your two rules. Know thyself, know God, understand God, love God, truth, nature, life, whatever you want to call it. Know that and be one with that. And number two, don't damage anything else. Period. Love the things around you. This translates right into the Constitution and the world we live in, because as above, so below. Everything is literally the same, whether it's spiritual forces trying to bring you down or it's the law trying to bring you down. It's all the same. You love truth, you love love, you love what is good, and you pursue it. And you love your neighbor, and you do not damage their things. Do you understand? Pretty straightforward. So these are your fundamental rights. Individual rights under our constitutions are immutable against all hostile legislation, which is not required by consideration of public health or safety. Folks, this right here is so important. Police power is only for the purpose of public, what did it say? It's for the purpose of public health and safety, public health, safety, welfare. Do you understand? The legislature, the rule makers in whatever state, or now Donald Trump, you know how Donnie Trump is out there, hey, America first. He can only pass laws that are constitutional, that are within bounds of what he can do. Donald Trump cannot say, hey, you random man or woman, you must do ABC. No way. The federal government can only pass rules for the federal government. Do you understand? They can't pass rules for everybody as a blanket. If you're in their jurisdiction, we're not talking territory. We're talking literally like possession. If you sold your property to the federal government, it is their property. If they bought property, it's their property, okay? Just because property is in a certain place does not make it theirs. It doesn't make it the counties or the states or the feds. Do you understand? And no law can be passed to violate that. That is so important, because your rights supersede all these legislative actions, okay? So right here, individual rights under our constitutions are immutable against all hostile legislation, which is not required by consideration of public health or safety. And such rights may not be made to yield to mere convenience, even if the majority of the people choose that they be. Do you folks understand? Did y'all just hear this? Okay. Individual rights under our constitutions are immutable against all hostile legislation, which is not required by consideration of public health or safety, and such rights may not be made to yield to mere convenience. So a mere convenience. The government says, well, you need to have plates because, it keeps everybody safe and it keeps everybody, it keeps everything good. No. I have a right to own my property, use my property on the road lawfully. The nexus between me and the state, the connection between me and the state, is a crime or a contract. Unless I sign a contract with them saying I'm going to be a good driver, I'm going to obey the driving speed. I'm going to have a driver's license. You don't have to do those things. When you do those things, you are in their regulation. Do you understand? And let me show you. Let's go ahead and show exactly what I'm talking about. And all these things, like I said, they're all in definitions. They're all in meanings. It's not arbitrary. Not all rules apply as needed. Let's look at some definitions. Individual. So this is the 1 USC Section 8 individual. Okay. In determining the meaning of any act of Congress or of any ruling, regulation, or interpretation of the various administrative bureaus and agencies of the United States, the words person, human being, child, and individual shall include every infant member of the species Homo sapien who was born alive at any stage or development. So, right off the jump, individual is one of their things in determining the meaning of any act of Congress. So when you're determining the act of Congress or of any ruling, their rulings, their regulation, or interpretation of the various administrative bureaus and agencies of the United States, the words person, y'all do know a person means a corporation, right? Walmart is a person. Your county is a person. Do you understand? So an individual is a person. A person is a corp. How can human being? Some blacks versions, I'm pretty sure the old blacks define human being as a sea monster. Somebody out there knows exactly what I'm talking about. Human being as a sea monster. If y'all can pull it up, go ahead and do that. But the whole point of me showing you this just goes to show that all these things mean something. It's all within their scheme. It's all within their regulatory scheme. It's not just random. The term individual means a citizen of the United States or an alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence. A citizen, is an agent of the United States. If you have a social security card and that thing is being used, you are a citizen. You're acting as an individual. You're acting as an agent of the state. 5 USC, this is where we get the definition of individual, which is right there. I think I just passed it. There it is. So it talks about agency. What agency is it talking about? All these things, it's like they all mean something. All these terms mean something. United States citizen means any individual who is a citizen of the United States by law, birth, or naturalization. B, any federal, state, or local government in the United States, or any entity of any such government. So, a United States citizen. When I say that, I think of a man or woman. I think of, I'm a citizen of the country. I'm a citizen. That's what I'm thinking. But right here in the code, it's letting you know a citizen is any federal, state, or local government in the United States. A citizen doesn't have to be a man or a woman. Do y'all understand? These are all codified things. These things are all created for the government. It's not necessarily, if you want to be a part of these things, you can be. If you want to get a license that requires you to have a social security number, that requires you to be regulated, that requires you, to register your property with the state for the purposes of commerce. If you choose to do that, you can. It's within your right to do so. But understand that you are acting as a person, an individual, United States citizen. Do you understand? That's what you do when you're doing these things. You're not just acting as a man living his life. You have a right to do damn near everything, as long as it doesn't encroach on somebody else's rights. You don't need the government to classify you as a citizen in order to have certain to have rights, to have certain privileges. Yes, but to have rights, no, not at all. So let's go back to Amger. The citizens of a free government are justly jealous of their constitutional rights and privileges, and this should be attributed to them as a virtue rather than a fault. It keeps them on the alert and inspires them with courage and determination in their efforts to resist the aggressions of arbitrary power. Do y'all read this? These cases applaud men and women that stand up for their rights, even citizens that are part of the scheme. You still have certain rights. You still have certain abilities within your avenue of existence. You know what I'm saying? You still have those things. So You should stand up for your rights. That's a good thing. That's a virtuous thing to have. Okay. And this should be attributed as a virtue rather than a fault. Stand up for your rights, people. Ask questions. How does this apply to me? Excuse me, I don't understand this law. Can you please elaborate? You get a letter in the mail saying you owe somebody something or something, you owe somebody something for your property, your stuff. Ask them how. It's not a crime to ask. Excuse me, how does this apply to me? Excuse me, these definitions state that, a person is so and so and so. How have you come to the conclusion that I am a person? How have you concluded that this applies to me? Most times, them niggas don't tell you anything of value. Most times they just cite the law and say, well, it does because it does. Public officers, most of them, I'm not going to say all of them. I bet you some do. I bet you some are very, very hard constitutionalists. But I bet you most of them, it's just a 9 to 5. It's a 9 to 5. You don't have time to read the Constitution. Why would you? Just read the quick, a lawyer is most likely going to tell you what you can and can't do. Your county lawyer, right? These people don't know the functions of government and how they work, even though they are government agents. Okay? You must, if you're wearing a uniform, there's so many maxims of law talking about this. If you are wearing a uniform, you must know the law. If you have enough, if you've come to the place where you can wear a uniform, you must have come to a place where you know enough of the law to uphold what it means to wear this uniform. Do y'all understand? Most police don't. Most police act as policy officers. Again, shout out to Malika on that one. Police policy officers, because they enforce policies. They enforce certain rules. Do y'all understand? So these are constitutional guarantees generally. I'll read a little bit more. It is generally recognized that legislation is unnecessary to enable the courts to give effect to constitutional provisions guaranteeing the fundamental rights of life, liberty, and protection of property. Do you understand? These things are recognized. They're well recognized. It's not a secret what these things are. It's a recognized thing. You need to assert it. You need to make the move to say, yes, I'm going to assert my rights. I'm going to actually, exercise my right to life, liberty, and property, because I have a right to live. I have a right to be free. I have a right to own property, to enjoy it, to do whatever the heck I want with that property. I have a right to do all that. So let's read about, should we go to specific fundamental rights? Yeah. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so rights are not exclusive to what is in any constitution. Okay, do y'all understand? And let's look at another constitution as an example. Let's pull up an example. This is North Carolina. Okay? North Carolina Constitution begins with a preamble. We, the people of the state of North Carolina, grateful to Almighty God, the sovereign ruler of nations, for the preservation of the American Union and the existence of our civil, political, and religious liberties, and acknowledging our dependence upon him for the continuance of those blessings to us and our posterity, due for the more certain security thereof, and for the better government of this state, obtain and establish this Constitution. So the people of North Carolina, okay, at some point back in the day, we, the people of the state of North Carolina, grateful to Almighty God, not to government, not to Donald Trump, not to Doge Elon Musk, okay, not to those people, not to our Zionist government, not to our APAC bought government, to God, Almighty God, okay? Grateful to Almighty God, the sovereign ruler of nations, for the preservation of the American Union and the existence of our civil, political, and religious liberties, and acknowledging our dependence upon him, okay? So it's right from the beginning. North Carolina is very clear. They're thankful to God for their rights. And that ability from God for them to have their political subdivisions, their religious liberties, their civil liberties, whatever. Because they're able to do that, they establish the Constitution. So it goes God, man, Constitution, government. Do y'all understand? God, man, Constitution, government. The Constitution gives life to government. Man gives life to the Constitution. God gives life to man. Okay? It all comes from God, then man. So just to understand the flow. Okay? So let's keep moving here. This is North Carolina again. So Article 1, Declaration of Rights. This is all we're going to read. We're not going to go into anything else because it's totally irrelevant, because it's for government. It's not for men and women who just exercise rights. The Constitution, as it is written, of any state, including the federal Constitution, is made for the government and the aggregate of people under that. Individuals, persons, human beings. Remember that thing we read? Remember that? The Title 1, okay? Giving you the definition of individual. It's for agents. It's for people under that. So, for example, North Carolina, say you live in Wayne County, North Carolina, okay? You live in Wayne County. The local government, just because it exists there and just because your house is in an area that the local government operates in, does not make your home, your property, what you do in your home, subject to the government, okay? Your stuff exists outside of the government, okay? So if we read this Constitution right here, the Declaration of Rights, the Bill of Rights, is specifically written so that the government can see what it cannot overstep. Do you understand? Your rights don't come from this. Your Bill of Rights are secured in the Constitution, and they secure it so that the government doesn't infringe on them. So let's read Section 1, the equality of rights of persons. Persons, note that as well, okay? We hold it to be self-evident that all persons are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the enjoyment of the fruits of their own labor, and the pursuit of happiness. North Carolina, they don't play. North Carolina is right to the point. Section 1, equality and rights of persons. Now, some of y'all might know this as, we hold it to be self-evident that all men are created equal. There's a difference between men, women, and persons. Walmart is a person. Walmart still has rights. Walmart has certain sovereignties within the constitutional framework, okay? Section 2, sovereignty of the people. All political power is vested in and derived from the people. Sovereignty is in the people. The people are sovereign. So next time somebody says you're being a sovereign citizen, first off, don't be retarded. Number 2, sovereignty is for the people. It's of the people. Sovereignty is free. The state is sovereign, for God's sake. Okay? All political power is vested in and derived from the people. All government of right originates from the people, is founded upon their will only, and is instituted solely for the good of the whole. So you tell me, how in the world does the government have the right to supersede you, the person? How does the government have a right to infringe on your rights and it's okay? Because it happens all the time. How does this happen? Are you exercising rights, or are you exercising privileges that maybe open you up to a certain scheme? Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see where this is going? The people create the government. The government can't then supersede the people. The government can't then, like, you can't have people say, hey, we want a government for our well-being, and then that same government passes a law that goes against the well-being of those people. That doesn't make sense. That literally contradicts the purpose of government. This is why we must know ourselves. Are we a part of this scheme, or are we sovereign men and women? Are we free? Do we tell our government what to do, or does our government tell us what to do? And if that's the case, why is that? How do we undo those chains? You know, that's kind of the thing. But every state will have a Bill of Rights that will talk about exactly what and what can and cannot happen. It just talks about your rights. But this is just a few, okay? Secession prohibited, allegiance to the United States, separation of powers, suspending laws, all these, okay? Representation and taxation, frequent election, free election, property qualifications, right of assembly and petition, religious liberty, all persons who have a natural and inalienable right to worship Almighty God. All persons have a natural. We have this thing. It didn't come from government. Government cannot pass laws that go against that. Education. The people have a right to the privilege of education, and it is the duty of the state to guard and maintain that right. Okay, so even within the state scheme, for example, the state has to have some kind of education system, compulsory education. Okay, so that those citizens, persons, etc., that want to exercise their right to education, which is, they have that privilege to do so. The state creates a place for them to exercise that privilege, which is a school, which is a common core school. Children, if you're a parent, you don't have to send your kids to school. It's there if you want to, but you don't have to. You can raise your kids. That is a right. The right to be educated is a right, but that does not solely come from the state. Do y'all understand? Okay. So you have the right to do all these things. It doesn't come from the state. So let's just, laws of the land, equal protection of the laws, general warrants. I mean, this is, y'all go ahead and read some of your stuff, but this is great. General warrants whereby any officer or another person may be commanded to search suspected places without evidence of the act committed, or to seize any person or persons not named whose offense is not particularly described and supported by evidence are dangerous to liberty and shall not be granted unlawful search and seizure. Fourth Amendment violation, and the state backs that up. Okay? So let's go back to Amjur. Another note real quick, and we'll get through this. So let's read about the applicability to state and federal governments. Oh, you know what? No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're going to go down to exactly penumbra rights. Okay, so we read the North Carolina Constitution, the Bill of Rights section. We saw a couple of the bills. We caught a couple of the sections. Okay, it talked about searches and seizures. It talked about education. It talks about life, liberty, property, etc. However, there are unlimitedly more things out there. Okay, we're not subject to just the things on paper. Okay, there's so many more things that are not written down that are still natural rights. Okay, these are called your penumbra rights. Certain rights, although not specifically mentioned in the federal constitution, have come to be recognized as fundamental rights that are protected by provisions of the Constitution and that may not be infringed on by the government. Thus, the United States Supreme Court has developed a doctrine that the specific guarantees in the Bill of Rights have penumbra, or shadows, formed by emanations from those guarantees that help give them life and substance. In other words, specific rights guaranteed by the first 8 amendments of the Constitution necessarily suggest other peripheral, but nevertheless fundamental rights that must also be protected, such as the right of privacy, the right to travel, and freedom of association. I don't know if y'all can see this, but this is it right here. Let me see if I can. Yeah, I don't know if I can. This is it right here. Okay, so penumbra rights that must also be protected: your right to privacy, right to travel, and freedom of association. Your right to travel, it's not written in your Constitution. You're not going to see, hey, the right to travel can be infringed upon. The right to have to raise a family can be infringed upon. The right to be able to buy a house and grow marijuana on that house. You're not going to see laws that talk about that because it is a penumbra right. It's a right that's there. It's a right that you have by virtue. Do you understand? Closely allied or related to the penumbra doctrine is the belief that the Ninth Amendment recognizes the existence of rights other than those enumerated in the Constitution, and that therefore fundamental but unspecified rights still belong to the people. Fundamental but unspecified. Your rights don't come from the government. Do you understand? They come from God. Know thyself. You're not a government puppet. You're a child of God. And if you don't believe in God, you're a child of clay and dust and ashes. And if you don't believe in that, I don't know, but you're not a government puppet unless you are. Unless you were literally created by government like Geppetto and you're a puppet on a string like Pinocchio, then this most likely is not for you. It's not for me, not for my family. I don't know. Maybe it does apply to you. I can't assume. I'm not going to assume. Maybe this is for you. Is it? I don't know. I don't know. But the Ninth Amendment, okay, touches on that on the penumbra rights. Your rights, the rights that are not written down, okay, rights not written, are just they're there. They're there. Just because it's not written down doesn't mean it's not a right. You still have certain rights. You still have sovereignty. The state has rights too, and the state has sovereignty. Okay, what makes you think you don't? When the state is a fiction, the state is a creation of the legislature. The state is a creation of government. Government is created by man. What makes you think you have less powers than the government? Do you understand? Know thyself. You have more powers than the government. Do you understand that? But then the next question is, so then how do they do what they do? How is the government supposed to, how are they allowed to just drag me out of my car if I don't have plates, I don't have a license, they drag me all the time. They're going to drag me out all the time. Maybe so. But do they have the right to do that? Because you do know there's remedies to cure nonsense like that. You do know the legislature, the government cannot encroach on your fundamental rights. So if you know that, how are you afraid of what they may or may not do? And granted, folks, I do get it. It's nerve-wracking. It could be devastating having things taken away. 1000%. But in my very, very humble opinion, these things happen because we don't know the difference between us and them. And we allow them to insert into us. And when that happens, they're able to do whatever they want. Like take something and take it away from you. Like take your child and get over here. Like Scorpion, you know? But once you understand that difference, you're able to put things in between. Okay? So let's go down through Amger just a little bit more, dealing with oh yeah, you know what? Let's get to specific rights. I know people want to talk about that. Let's get into specific fundamental rights. Generally, and you know what? We might wrap it up here with that. We'll get into the Constitution maybe another day. We'll just wrap it up with some of these rights right here. So generally, okay, these are specific fundamental rights, First Amendment rights. Okay, generally, the First Amendment to the United States Constitution provides Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Okay, so this is this section right here. And the footnote is several cases. We got a bunch of cases right here where this is coming from, okay? And that's what I like about Amger. You get citations out the ass, baby. You get citations out the ass, baby. Okay, so while there's some authority for the view that the First Amendment freedoms have priority over other constitutional rights or guarantees, the better view is that all such rights and guarantees are of equal dignity. Moreover, Fundamental constitutional rights and guarantees, including those of the First Amendment, are not absolute or unrestricted and are subject to reasonable limitations and control. This is where that police power, which we're going to touch on, comes in. Okay? Moreover, fundamental constitutional rights and guarantees, including those in the First Amendment, are not absolute or unrestricted. Now, what it's saying right here is your right to be free, your right to life, liberty, property, it's not absolute or unrestricted. It's subject to reasonable limitations and control of the government. In what scenario does your fundamental right give way to something public? I can think of two specific cases. Number one, you are in a contract with the government where you put on the cloak of personhood and now certain rights are not there anymore. Okay? And two, when you have committed a crime, when you've damaged somebody else or their property. Do you understand? Besides that, your rights are there. If your rights don't come into contact with anything public, there is nothing there. If your rights do not damage public health, safety, and welfare, there is nothing there. If you're exercising your rights just as a matter of, existing without any damage, there is no connection. There has to be a nexus, folks. There has to be a connection. Just because they say there is does not make it so. Do you understand? There has to be elements of a crime for them to get involved. There has to be something happening that you're not supposed to do. You have to have a duty, and then you break that duty, and then there's damages. Duty, breach, damages. You had a contract signed, you breached the duty, and then there's damages. Do you understand? Or there's no contract in place, but you damage somebody else or their property, that you're liable to that person. Do you understand? Okay, so that's just number one. So your right to religion, of course. And religion, folks, it's not just your belief in God. Religion can be a conscientious thing. So when somebody tells you to put on a mask or tells you to get a vaccine, that could violate your religious morals, your sincerely held beliefs, your deeply held beliefs, okay? It's not limited to like a secular person can have religious morals, okay? It's a state of mind. It's not a dogmatic thing. Okay. So we've got life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. The theory upon which the political institutions and social structure of America rest is that all men have certain rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which are inalienable, fundamental, and inherent. This principle was, of course, expressly stated in the Declaration of Independence. In addition, the Constitution of the United States provides that neither Congress nor the states may deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, and many of the states' constitutions contain similar guarantees. A person's liberty has been held protected by the Due Process Clause, even when the liberty itself is a statutory creation of the state. Did y'all just hear that? Okay, a person's liberty, your freedom, your ability to be, to move from place to place. Liberty is just to be, to exist, to be free. Okay, a person's liberty has been held protected by the Due Process Clause, even when the liberty itself is a statutory creation of the state. Even when the state creates this liberty. So say the state has a, for example, a position, like you're an officer of the state, a lawyer, okay, a police officer, somebody who's subject to the state in some capacity. If you are given a privilege that allows you liberty, even that privilege still has certain rights with it. Do you understand? And this is a privilege. This isn't a right. This is a privilege given to you by the state. Even that privilege cannot be infringed arbitrarily. Do you understand? Very important stuff there. That's very, very, very important. The 14th Amendment recognizes liberty and property as coexistent and debars the states from any unwarranted interference with either. The state must have some kind of warrant, okay, when dealing with your liberty or your property. I'll say that one more time. The state must have some form of warrant. There must be a right. There must be an order, okay, for them, for the state to deal with you or your liberty. They can't just do that. For example, the police can't just arrest you without probable cause of a crime or a warrant. It has to be a lawful warrant, and that probable cause has to have a criminal aspect. It has to have a criminal element to it. You can't just arrest people for arbitrary reasons. You must have probable cause of a crime or a warrant. Otherwise, that shit is unlawful, baby. You feel me? Because you have those rights. They cannot be violated without due process. Okay? Let's do another one. Let's do, just to give you all a quick brief. Let's do what other rights do we have? Sexual equality. We got property. Let's read about property, okay? This is Section 580 of 16 AMJUR, okay? The Fifth Amendment to the federal Constitution prevents the federal government or its agencies from depriving any person of his property without due process of law. Okay? The 14th Amendment to the federal Constitution and all the various state constitutions prevent any action by a state which would accomplish such deprivation. These provisions securing defined property rights against invasion by state authority are limitations upon the lawmaking power of the legislature, as well as upon the powers of the other departments of the state government. Again, the Constitution is in place not to give you rights, but it's there for the government to give limits, to put limits, to prescribe what they can and cannot do, to prescribe their thing. It's their document. It doesn't give you anything. It talks about things you have, things that I have, things that we as men and women have. It doesn't bestow anything upon us unless we are a governmental entity. And then that Constitution, sure, it goes way in depth to you and your job and whatever the hell you might be doing within the scope of government. Otherwise, no bueno. Okay? There's an important distinction between liberty and property with respect to the protection included in the 14th Amendment. As far as the persons who may invoke the constitutional guarantees of due process are concerned, for although corporations cannot invoke the liberty concept of their own protection, since they are not natural persons, they are fully entitled to the protection of the due process clause in their property or their property rights. Even goddamn Walmart has rights. You folks get this? Even corporations within their limits, they still have rights. So how much more you, a man or a woman? Wake up, folks. Read your constitutions. Whatever state you live in, here's your homework. Whatever state you live in, go to Google, okay? Pull up your state name, Constitution. Arizona Constitution, Ohio Constitution, California Constitution, whatever. Pull up your state constitution and just read it. Just read it. Read the Bill of Rights to know what is in there. Understand what things it talks about. Skim through the different sections and read what it talks about taxation, Department of Taxation. See what it talks about education. What does it talk about like welfare? All these things are codified. And if you read, you will see that all these things apply to specific individuals. It's not for everybody. For example, not all property is taxable. If it's generating revenue, it's taxable. If it's for profit, it's taxable. Okay, in New York, our taxation laws specifically exclude property that is not for profit, like charitable organizations, like needy organizations, shelters, places of education, places of religious, moral, hygiene, etc. All those places that are not operating for profit are exempt from taxation. And those are corporate things. Again, are you corporate? Does that apply to you? Because if it doesn't, why are you paying taxes? Why are you part of the scheme? Are you generating profit in your home? But again, we might be going a couple steps ahead. Overall, point being, you have rights that are not given to you by government. You have rights that are protected from government. Okay? Corporations and fake entities like Walmart, like Disney, like you name it, like your county, okay? Something that's not real, not a flesh and blood man or woman, something that's not real. Even those things have protections. So how much more you, a child of God, a creation of something greater than this world we live in, this corrupt world. Although it's filled with beauty, it's not perfect. Okay? You are not part of this scheme unless you are. That's kind of what I really want y'all to understand. It's like, if it applies to you, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Okay? Let's read more. We got property, right to privacy. I know a lot of y'all like this. The right of privacy, and this is a right of privacy, section 601. Okay? The right of privacy as an independent and distinctive legal concept has two main aspects. Number one, the general law of privacy, which affords a tort action for damages resulting from an unlawful invasion of privacy. And two, the constitutional right of privacy, which protects personal privacy against unlawful governmental invasion. You have a right to be private. You have a right not to talk to police. You have a right to keep your privacy away from their public means. Do y'all understand? While the federal constitution does not explicitly mention any right of privacy, the Supreme Court of the United States has declared that the right of privacy is a fundamental right guaranteed by the federal constitution. It's a fundamental right, guys. Fundamental. This declaration was adopted by Congress when it enacted the Privacy Act of 1974. Go on Google, Privacy Act of 1974, download that in PDF, okay? Just download it. Go through it and skim it. Read some of the things to see what it says about privacy, what's allowed, what's not allowed. Read it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Go read the thing for yourself. The constitutionality protected right of privacy emanates from the totality of the constitutional scheme under which we live. A person's general right of privacy has been described by the Supreme Court as the right to be let alone. You have a right to be left alone. Somebody says, hey, you got to get a vaccine. You got to put a mask on. No. I have the right to be left alone. Okay? That's my privacy. You cannot encroach upon me with your garbage because I have a right to be left alone. So see ya. Bye-bye. No, thank you. Not today. Not today. Not today. The right to be let alone. I like that. And there's a bunch of case authority. Let's read some of the footnotes. The century was experienced. Okay, let's see. Let's read. Here we go. This is from Katz versus United States. Okay, stating that the protection of a person's general right to privacy is, like the protection of his property and his life, left largely to the law of the individual states, but that various provisions of the federal constitution protect personal privacy from governmental invasion. Do you understand? There's rules and provisions in the Constitution. Although the state might have certain provisions on property and privacy, etc., the federal Constitution just protects your privacy, period. You have a right to be let alone. That's it, folks. That's it. Okay? You have a right to privacy. Simple thing, but very, very important. Okay? And again, the Privacy Act, as we can see here, Privacy Act of 1974, 5 USC 552A, was enacted by Congress primarily to safeguard individual privacy from the misuse of federal records, to grant individuals the right of access to records concerning them which are maintained by federal agencies, and to establish a Privacy Protection Study Commission. Section 2A4 of the Act contains the congressional finding that, quote, the right of privacy is a personal and fundamental right protected by the Constitution of the United States, folks. Do you understand? It's talking about all these records. Let me see if I can pull this up. You know what? We'll save that for another day. But we'll come back to the 5 USC 552A. Okay, very significant as it talks about agencies, governmental agencies. It's agents, individuals, okay, citizens, people that fall under this. Even those people, those entities still have privacy rights. How much more do you? Okay. Freedom of travel. We all have the right to travel. You do know this, right? The freedom to travel. You do have this. The rule is firmly established that the right of citizens of one state to pass into any other state of the union or to reside therein for the purposes of engaging in lawful commerce, trade, or business without molestation is secured and protected by the United States Constitution. The manner of describing the general nature of the federal constitutional right of interstate travel has varied from one Supreme Court case to another. And although several Supreme Court cases appear to have treated the privilege and immunities clauses of Article, 4, Section 2 of the Constitution, or on the privileges and immunities clauses of the 14th Amendment, or the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment as the basis of the right, other cases, especially recent ones, either have suggested that the right of interstate travel is based on general constitutional principles or have considered it unnecessary to base this right on any particular constitutional provision because it's just a right. You have the right to travel. You don't need to codify this thing. It's a right. It is what it is. Okay? And there's so much, and this just scratches the surface. I mean, there's so much more that talks about this. Here's I like this one. This is coming from State versus Sheffel. And what does it say? There is no constitutional right to a particular mode of travel. Okay? There is no right to one mode of travel. There is no discrimination amongst modes of travel. The roads are open to all modes of travel. That includes motor vehicles with license plates and registered vehicles. It includes non-registered vehicles, automobiles, okay? It includes bicycles. It includes horses and buggies, you name it. The roads are open for vehicles to travel, okay? A vehicle is able to be on the road regardless of its registration status. That is only relevant when that vehicle is engaging in a certain activity. When you're in interstate commerce, which is a thing. This touches on Title 49, subsection 6, motor vehicles. Okay? Title 49, transportation, talks about all types of transportation. This is USC, United States Codes. If you go to Title 49, subsection 6 talks about motor vehicle safety, etc., etc. The purpose of motor vehicle safety and regulations is to regulate motor vehicles in interstate commerce. And we'll get to this another day. This is just me breezing through it. It's about interstate commerce. It's not about your right to travel. It's about interstate commerce. Commerce going from place to place. Commerce meaning business, meaning trade, meaning transportation, meaning the trafficking of things. Do y'all folks understand? The government only regulates things in its purview. It does not regulate you living your life. Okay? What else we got? We might be wrapping it up. Interstate travel, international travel, limitations and restrictions on rights. The constitutional right of interstate travel is not an absolute right, but is subject to reasonable restrictions. What do y'all think those restrictions are? If we took a wild guess, what would be those restrictions? You have a right to travel, okay? That right is not absolute. It's subject to certain restrictions. What would you guess those restrictions are? There may be instances where the governmental interests served by certain restrictions outweigh the burdens imposed upon the right of interstate travel. Let me say that again. So what they're telling you right here, there may be instances, okay, where the governmental interest is greater than your right. in which case the restrictions will not be held unconstitutional. This is particularly the case with respect to Congress's regulation of international travel. It is also true with respect to local travel, as in the case of imposition of a curfew applicable to an entire city during a state of emergency. Do y'all see this? During states of emergencies, the government can pass certain things, certain rules, certain impositions. And even then, they're not applicable to everybody. The government can't just come out and say, hey, I'm a police officer. Because I said so, you have to listen to me. No, there has to be some kind of governmental tie. You can sure as hell regulate my travel, but I have to be doing something that you regulate. I have to be doing something that comes in the way of you. You can't just regulate me because I'm on the road with other people and I don't have a license. That's not a crime. When I hit somebody, that's a problem. When somebody hits me, that's a problem. When a horse and buggy is on the road, that's not a problem. Have y'all ever seen a horse and buggy with a license plate? I haven't. I've seen Amish in it. I've seen a whole family of Amish in the thing. I've never seen plates. I've never seen a license because those things don't need a license. Certain vehicles need a license. When engaging in certain activities, need a license. And again, this is that separation of you and them. What am I doing that's bringing me into their nexus? If the answer is nothing, there's nothing. Okay? All in all, folks, this is just the whole point of this is to let you know that there's fundamental rights and privileges. Okay? Not all privileges are, or I should say, not all rights, okay, are within the purview of the government. Okay? All rights are there, all rights exist. However, those rights cannot be encroached by government. Those rights exist, and up to the point of somebody else's right being violated, your rights are not subject to regulation unless you're doing something that is in their purview. Okay? I hope that kind of makes sense to people. We're going to do more. We're going to jump a lot further into this, but know thyself, number one, rights, constitution, police power. We didn't talk much about police power. We will on the next one. And I think I'm going to have a guest that is going to help break this down a lot more. But rights, your rights don't come from the government. Your rights come from God. If you're a person, if you're an agent, if you're an individual, if you are a codified term, okay, somehow, somewhere, the government will be regulating you in some capacity. Okay. When you are able to separate those differences, you're able to see what applies to you and what doesn't. You're able to make better decisions. When you sign paperwork, you're able to maybe think 2 steps ahead to think about what am I signing? In what capacity is this going to apply to me? How is this going to play out? If you don't know that, you sign stuff. If you don't know that, you register your home to the county. If you don't know that, you register your vehicle. If you don't know that, you acquiesce to the government. Do you understand? When you acquiesce, you may get certain privileges back, but when it comes time for you to exercise certain rights and you don't know how to, you're stuck in the bounds of the government. Do you understand? So the sooner we're able to unravel all that, the sooner we're able to maybe put things back in order. Okay? So number one, know thyself. I would suggest highly, by the way, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not none of those things. You can't pay me to be a lawyer. I'm not a bar member. None of that. We all have rights. Exercise those rights. Know your rights. Before you can exercise, you must know. Okay? Go read your constitutions. Go know what your constitution says. Go read the federal constitution. Go know what. Go read that. Okay, whatever you might be going through right now, whether it's CPS, whether it's traffic tickets, whatever it is, just go read the law that governs those things, just so you have a better understanding. Don't take somebody else's word for it. That's one thing that truly helped me wake up, is reading these things myself. Again, I'm not an expert, and this is only part one. But the moment you're able to decipher these things on your own, you're able to see that. You put it into practice. You don't have to take my word. You don't have to take anybody else's word for it. You're able to do what you're able to do because you know. Okay? And when you talk to more like-minded people, you're able to like mull things over. You're able to paint a better picture of what's actually going on. So that was just part one. That was quick. That was a quick dry run. That was a bit of a shotgun run, but I hope some of you are able to take stuff away from this. Again, Google your constitutions. Google your local like charters, your county charters, whatever county you're in. See if you have a charter. Go read that. That's what I've been told to do. That's what I did. That's what helped me along the way with some of these things. Okay, go read the actual rules and see what they say, so you know. Okay, very important stuff. So again, I'm Charles with Eyes and Ears. Y'all can find me on X, Eyes and Ears number 3 instead of the letter E. Eyes and Ears, Monday mornings, AM wake up, 7 a.m. Western, 10 p.m., 10 a.m. Eastern. Me and Steve Poikinen breaking down some stuff. Y'all catch me on Monday. I'll see y'all there. We got some spicy talk. There's a lot going on in the world, so a lot of stuff to cover. Besides that, I'll see y'all. Know your rights, but first, read about the rights. Understand your place with God. Understand your place with yourself. Where do you fit in the world? What makes you special? Okay? These are the things I like to know. Peace, y'all. See y'all. Have a good time. Thanks for joining me.